My first game as a rookie was particularly memorable, and one that redefined my mindset and approach to the business and politics of overseas basketball moving forward. It was a nationally televised game against the league's defending champions, and I was excited to be on TV and playing in the starting five. The coach had said to the team many times that the import players were playing every minute of every game, and so I was eager to prove to our home fans and the organization that they had made the right decision in signing me to join the club. I ended up having a frustrating game, missing a bunch of shots I usually make, with a lot of them rimming in and out of the basket, and I finished the game with 11 points and 11 rebounds. I remember shortly after the game, as I was taking off my shoes on the bench, the head coach and the assistant coach called over the other import player who had a decent scoring game, and they began speaking amongst themselves. I later found out that he was asking the other American import if he knew anybody back in America that was taller than me and could score the ball more efficiently. I had gotten a double-double in my first professional game, which in college was a respectable stat line at the Division I level, but in my first game overseas, it warranted me being replaced. I was slammed by the home fans on the team blog for being a waste of a signing, and that my days playing for the club were numbered. It was a reality check for me, where I realized that even though I'd signed for the whole season, it didn't really mean much in reality when I could be sent home in an instant without receiving my full salary. It was mentally tough to see my dreams of reaching this level being crushed so quickly, and for my teammates who were raving about me during the preseason games and anticipating how well I would do in league play, suddenly go quiet and avoid speaking to me. I internalized everything that was going on, and it became a very lonely time where I had nobody around me I knew to give me any words of encouragement. And I locked myself up in my room, feeling heavy anxiety and anticipating that at any moment I'll get a call saying I was being let go from the team. Later that night, I heard the other American import player and some of my local teammates going on a night out and not knocking on my door to check to see if I wanted to join them. It was at that moment I realized the sentiment around me and my status at the club. During the following practices, the demeanor of the coaching staff and my teammates remained distant, and we had our next game approaching in a few days. Suddenly, a bomb went off in the city of Beirut and everything was shut down as there was a lot of political unrest, which made it momentarily difficult to move in and out of the country. Nonetheless, our practices continued and our upcoming game was still on schedule. I personally believe that situation allowed me to stay in the country a little while longer to play the next game. I was in a team that had the lowest budget in the league and just came up from the second division to the top league that year and had relatively low expectations of winning games against the other much bigger clubs. Given everything that had gone on, I was highly motivated going into the next game as I viewed it as possibly being my last. I became numb to everything and really tuned my mind to perform on my usual level and avoided joking around or speaking to anyone, if at all. I approached the game with a stoic expression where I showed no emotion no matter what was happening and went on to have a breakout performance with a game high in points and rebounds while also securing an unexpected victory that changed the scope of our expectations for the season moving forward. Everybody was excited and my teammates became much more friendly and talkative again. And the fans who were formerly bashing me on the team blog for my previous performance were now apologizing and expressing their gratitude for having me as a premier talent signed to their club. Through all the adulation and praise, I remained relatively emotionless and realized I had to be that way to withstand the highs and lows of what comes with playing at that level and how drastically people within an organization can treat you from one game to the next. I stayed in that mode for the remainder of the season and never got comfortable enough to even unpack my luggage as I viewed every game as being my last, which led to a prolific rookie year where I ended up in the top 5 MVP rankings in a league full of ex-NBA players and EuroLeague veterans. So it's important to note that although pro basketball overseas looks glamorous, it's in fact a very lonely journey for the individual who leaves their friends and families for several months at a time to live in a foreign environment they're not used to, where they don't understand the language and are playing with teammates they've never played with before. The style of basketball overseas, particularly in Europe, is much more cerebral and very different from the fast-paced run-and-gun style of play in the US. You have to figure out the fine line of playing your game to make sure you're achieving the necessary stats to progress your career the following season, while also involving your teammates and making sure they're happy so you're not deemed as selfish, which could potentially put you in a situation where you lose your job because of that. It takes a great deal of mental fortitude to deal with the isolation outside of practices and games, where you're often alone in your room, keeping yourself occupied by talking to friends and family or your girlfriend on FaceTime, watching movies, TV shows, and playing video games, or just venturing out into the city to clear your head. There's a certain level of mental stamina required to withstand some of the things that can take place within an organization, depending on where you're playing, where your time of salary payment could be pushed for several weeks at a time, while you still have to keep momentum and getting games under your belt and hoping that eventually you get what's owed to you, which may or sometimes may not come. So these are some of the realities outside of the sport people may be unfamiliar with that overseas import players have to deal with, other than just being paid to play the sport that we love and enjoying it with a smile on our face, taking pictures with fans, or posting great action shots and clips with inspirational captions on social media. There's a whole unique lifestyle that comes with it, and there's a great deal of mental toughness and resilience required to see each season through until the end. Playing basketball professionally overseas offers an invaluable experience, where having to get comfortable repeatedly in different environments and cultures adds so much maturity and exposure to your personality. There can be bumps in the road in finding the right country or team to play for, but once you're in a stable situation with quality teammates and coaching staff and a supportive fan base, the camaraderie built from competing together and the memories made are unlike anything else.